Transhumanism. It's the bold idea of using technology to improve our lives, pushing the boundary of what it means to be human in the process. So get ready for an electrifying conversation about transhumanism with our esteemed guest, Shaun Rosado, a dedicated futurist and passionate sci-fi geek. Shaun continually explores the ever-evolving relationship between humans and technology. As the creative mind behind Pop Cycle Baubles and a devoted pop culture enthusiast, Shaun possesses a unique perspective on how technology shapes our lives and humanity's future. Join us as we delve into the world of transhumanism, discussing its implications, potential, and controversies, all while keeping things fun and engaging. So sit back, relax, and prepare for an enlightening ride with the fantabulous Shaun Rosado, or as he's known on social media, Numa Z. Get ready for this episode, and here we go. Shaun, we move things around a little bit. Who do you want to do a shout out to?
Yeah, well, I think first off, thank you for that amazing introduction. You made me sound way cooler than I think I am in real life. Cool. But I love that. That was fantastic. But yes, I actually wanted to give a special shout out because this just happened to these SpaceX engineers and their rapid unscheduled disassembly of their of their Starship. That was maybe the most amazing way to cover a fail that I've ever seen in my life. Oh, we had a rapid unscheduled disassembly. It blew up. Okay, like that's engineer talk for it blew it up.
But they said that it was a win because they made it. They just wanted to make it past the top of the tower, and I'm like, right. Kind of a low bar.
It really is. I mean, like if your bar is, can we lift off past our gantry? That's not a really high bar, and to be fair, like you want to work this stuff out before you put a person on board. So in that aspect, yes, successful discovery. Science is literally the idea of us making assumptions, testing them out, finding out if they work. And when they blow up in our face, this case, literally, then we go back and we figure out how to make it work correctly.
Can I just say what a fantabulous transition that was into transhumanism?
I know, right?
Yeah. So, hey, how did you get involved in transhumanism? And explain it to the audience. What is it?
Right. Okay. So this was actually something that I really want to start talking about because I've been hearing a lot on the internet lately about people have becoming afraid of this idea of transhumanism. And transhumanism is simply the idea of, as we evolve as a species, we continue to apply technology to then allow us to become better. It's basically our way of artificially accelerating our own evolution. Is in the most simplistic terms, we're actually using technology to condition and develop parts of our brains, bodies, and anatomy in order to then enhance our capabilities.
Okay. And so I have a quick question about that there.
Yes.
Because way back in the day, and I mean back in the day, when we started using like sticks and stones to make weapons and make fire, were we becoming transhuman then?
That is actually my assertion. That you nailed it right on the head. There was a point where humans were almost indistinguishable from other primates that would have been in the family that we're related to. We know, the Homo erectus. We know of Cro-Magnon. These are all fairly similar species of primate. But the Homo erectus that eventually evolved into humans started to learn how to use tools, and they started to become transhumanistic. They basically went from that version of being a human and learning how to use basic tools, something as simple as what we call a hand axe. Something we can date back hundreds of thousands of years. It's basically a piece of stone that they had learned if you chip off an edge, you can make it into an axe, and they could use that to build, to cut down materials, to basically allow themselves to survive harsher environments and to protect themselves from wild animals.
By the way, I still don't know how to do that. So if I was out in the wild, I'm goner.
So, well, I mean, yes, we as a culture have learned so much that we actually have forgotten some of the basics. But if you've ever gone to Boy Scouts, hopefully you had a chance to, there's probably some knowledge in there that you have tucked in the back of your brain that if you had to remember it, it would start to bubble back.
Right. Close the tent door and watch out for snakes.
Well, I mean, those are actually really good pieces of advice. So I mean, you're
They
not wrong.
are.
So I mean, you're really not wrong when you're talking about those things. So yeah, I
Amazing.
mean, that's absolutely right. But yeah, that's what transhumanism is. Transhumanism is about us using technology to then better evolve ourselves as a species. The more modern version of it is about us really figuring out a way for us to live longer, better, more productive lives. Um, and there's also this idea of growing closer together as a species. And I sit back and I look at that and I go, like, this is really fantastic, amazing kind of goals. And it's funny because this term is so new, but I kind of sit back and go, we have one technology that really defined exactly what transhumanism is,
What
and
is
we
that?
take it. We take it for granted. I wanted you to guess, actually, Michael,
The
if you could
technology
figure
we
out
take for granted?
what technology do we take for granted that probably is the most influential thing that transformed us from a simple primate species into what we consider humanity today?
So I got to go back pretty far. I'm gonna guess. I don't know. Ships.
Ships, really, ships. That's not a bad guess. I mean, the ability to travel absolutely would have a massive influence, but it goes back further than that. So try
Okay,
to
further than that.
would predate ships.
Predating ships would be buildings,
Go back.
and predating buildings might be fire.
Mm. Now, fire actually would probably come before this one. Fire's great, and fire definitely is on the curve, but it is not the thing that pushed us into being the creatures that we are today. So I'm going to break the
You do it.
attention.
Yeah.
Language, the ability to communicate, the ability to convey complex ideas. And I want you to think about this for a moment.
Okay.
Prior to us as a species having the ability to communicate with each other, we would have to teach skills and ideas from person to person through gestures, grunts, and basically rote repetition. As
Okay.
we were able to learn how to conceptualize these ideas into something that we could communicate, and we're talking any language, that allowed us to share this wisdom quickly and more efficiently. And once we were able to create the written word, it didn't mean that we had to learn everything within the lifetime of one master. We could learn from multiple masters.
Now, is
And
that
as soon
different than, say, like birds and chimpanzees and everything? Because they communicate.
they
Whales
do,
communicate,
but
but
have you ever seen birds start to build off of what other birds do within a generation? Or even
no.
in the same generation. You see that with humans. You see how we are able to take an idea and then, hundreds or thousands of other people will look at that idea and then they'll riff off of that idea and it becomes something else. Music is also language. Look at how we just translate music just in a decade. Look at a decade of music and watch how it changes over a decade.
Why is
Um,
it that we can do that, but like other species can't, or at least we don't think they do?
Well, I actually just watched a really funny documentary a couple days ago, and it was actually really sweet because it was talking about the dumbest animals on the planet, and even though they're extraordinarily stupid, we still love them. But like Mother Nature's gunning for them. And they actually put two of my favorite animals on this list.
Uh-huh.
One was the panda, and
Really?
the other was the koala.
Dumb.
And
Like way
they were
down dumb.
they were basically like, these animals are so dumb, and they looked at pandas and they're like, these animals, they're omnivores, they're really meant to eat different types of plants and animals, but they refuse to eat anything but bamboo, and because of that they have almost no energy to do anything. So the reason why they don't mate often is because quite literally they have to continue to eat just to kind of wake up and go, I don't want to have booty today, honey. Like, they don't even have enough energy to even look at another panda and go like, do I? Like, go Google all those videos that people are trying to do to encourage the pandas to get busy with
Uh-huh.
each other. It's because these pandas are just too tired. They're just too tired. And if you look at a panda's brain, it's not nearly as formed as ours. And that takes us to the second animal. And this is really the answer to your question. Koalas.
No,
Koalas
no.
sleep upwards of 22 hours a day. And they are so dumb that they will only eat eucalyptus leaves if it is on a tree branch. So let me explain this to you.
Okay.
If it looks at this and it says, oh, wow, I really want to eat that eucalyptus leaf, and you take it off the branch, it will immediately go, what is that? And the reason why is they've done autopsies on koalas. Their brains are completely smooth. It looks like a chicken breast. There's
Uh-huh.
no ridges. There's no anything. And the way our brains work are the folds that allow the electrons and the neurons to find and meet each other. And they're not there. So they have two chicken cutlets in their brain that allow them to see one thing: bamboo or eucalyptus. And
Yeah.
if you move it, if you take that and you take it off the tree, it goes, and
Okay.
it
So we got nothing to fear from pandas or koalas, basically.
or koalas. But
Yeah.
that's essentially what it is that our brains, because we did this, because we continue to talk, because we continue to push the efforts of communication, the folds in our brains
Yep.
continue to become more and more complex. And that allows us to really contain far more information than other animals on this planet.
Okay. So bring this back to like humans now, because we got people who are I'm just going to use the word terrified of
Yes.
technology. Okay. Now, because people think that the robots are going to take over, but the robot is like separate from us, but it's part
Mhm.
of a part of us, right?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
and this, like, we're dangerously going into AI territory, which I know you've been wanting to talk to me about forever.
Oh, we're
Um,
going to do a different conversation on that. We'll
yeah,
come
that's a
back to
whole different
ChatGPT.
conversation.
Yeah.
But in general, people are really afraid of technology, especially right now, because even with the progression that we've had, and that words are hard. Internet.
That's
Sometimes you
why
just
we're advanced.
that's why we're advanced, yes. But everything that you see is basically an exponential curve in our development. And the thing with exponential curves is that it's kind of like a line like this. It slowly gets bigger, and then at a
Mhm.
certain point you hit a moment where that exponential jumps, and then it jumps. We're like on our third jump, where we're basically, if this was a roller coaster, we're going straight up, and
Yeah.
where we haven't even got to the top of that ridge. Like, it's just boom, we're shooting upwards. And that is terrifying to a lot of people because they remember a time when this stuff just didn't exist. And then you start to hear about futurists, and you start to hear about people who are sitting down and saying, this technology will allow us to do X, Y, and Z. It will allow us to erase borders and countries. And people start to fear the loss of their self a little
Yeah.
bit,
John Lennon
because
would have liked it.
yes, he would have, but he wanted people to come together through empathy. And in an ironic way, technology is allowing us to do that.
Hmm.
Um, but there's this weird dichotomy that's happening in society. And I tend to look at Americans as that dichotomy, because if you really want to look at how a people can be unified and yet completely shattered at the same time, Americans are a really good example. Like, you can find people who have fundamentally the same core beliefs, but they come at it from two different directions, and they cannot agree
Correct.
because those exterior beliefs will not allow them to sync up, even though fundamentally they have the same core concepts.
Yeah.
And that's a really weird thing.
It is. Without getting into like the politics of it, I think a lot of
Correct.
times our politics is that we want same goal, different way, can't agree.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, like, fundamentally, think of it like this. A lot of people like to espouse that we are a Christian nation, even though we are built on everybody can have their own religion. And a lot of people who espouse a Christian faith forget about the fact that one of those things is to be good to each other, to find ways of having empathy towards one another, towards finding a way to communicating and understanding one another, to deepening your ability to actually have meaningful communication and
mhm.
understanding with one another. And yet, again, as Americans, we're capitalists, which is, I got to get mine because it's dog eat dog. And yet, technology is influencing an entire generation of kids right now who are doing something that we've never gone through before in the history of the world. And I actually watched a movie. Well, I mean, we've all watched this movie probably, but if you haven't, you need to, because I really feel it's a metaphor for what's happening to the current generation of kids.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen the movie Everything Everywhere and All at Once?
I have not. I keep meaning to, but I haven't found any place that I can watch it on my TV for
I
free yet.
gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be coming to
Yeah,
one of those
it's
services
coming
soon.
soon.
Yeah, it's coming soon. But I bought it like when it came out, watched it a bunch of times. Fantastic movie, worth all the praise. But I'm not going to give anything away outside of what's in the trailer. But the core concept is that it's essentially a conversation about this woman's ability to start to see herself in different multiverses, in different
Mhm.
timelines. And she basically has a daughter. Um, and the daughter is going through other experiences similar
Is
to
she a
hers. And so
transhumanist?
well, that's actually what I want to talk about, which is the fact
Oh,
that the whole point is the mother was a person who did not have this ability. So she was able to basically kind of like, I don't know what the hell is going on, but I have a foundation of I knew who I was before this. Whereas the daughter does not. The daughter basically has always known about this stuff. And I like to look at what's happening with the modern generation, who I really kind of consider like the first transhuman generation. They have grown up in a world where we are instantly connected everywhere.
that is true.
But
That is,
we as adult, like even me, I grew up in an analog world, and then as technology fired off, I grew up with it. So I understand it, but I still have my basis of a childhood without that. These kids who are now 18, 19, 20 or younger, they've never experienced a world where they don't have that level of connection, where their virtual self is as real as their physical self.
yeah,
And there's no rule book for it.
that's a very good point. I was having a conversation with one of my guests the other day about the fact that she didn't have a cell phone. And I remember, yeah, we didn't have cell phones back in the day. If you wanted to go to the movies, you actually had to
Mhm,
tell someone, I will be outside 10 minutes early. If you're not there 2 minutes after that, I'm
mhm,
going in. Good luck finding us.
mhm.
Um, and we don't know how to communicate like that anymore because of the technology that we have. It's like, hey, I'm going to be late. I'm like, 3 miles away. Just hold on. That
Right.
never happened in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You're absolutely correct. And one of the problems that a lot of people are having is that they're like, well, we don't communicate like that anymore. Why can't kids learn how to communicate the way we communicate?
Mhm.
And we keep trying to force them to think in a retroactive way. We're trying to hold them, their minds, their perceptions to an older way of seeing things. And what
Yeah,
we really need to be doing is allowing ourselves to say, they're teaching us the way forward, and we have to truly talk to them about it. And that's transhumanism, is allowing the people who understand the technology and who are here to try to help us to actually
I
guide us.
gotta
And
I
that
gotta
means,
slow you down on that though,
okay,
because
go. Yeah.
I'll use programming as an example,
Hmm.
computer programming. Okay,
Sure.
there are a lot of people that pick up a cell phone or iPad or an iPhone, have no idea how it works.
Right.
If we lost it, they couldn't program a calculator,
Hmm.
um, and so they are using the technology like as if it were always here.
Hmm.
And if the electricity gets turned off, we're all doomed, actually.
Hmm.
What is it that I don't know that they are teaching the older generation and that the older generation is teaching a newer generation? It's it keeps growing, but
Hmm.
I don't know that there's any way to back up. But
And
there are
there's
things to
not.
learn from the past.
Well, and I mean, there is the great phrase of, anybody who does not learn the past is doomed to repeat it. I'm not taking anything away from that. But
Yeah.
what I am saying is that fundamentally, we have a generation of humans that have an experience and a wealth of point of views that are so alien to every single human that came before them
Hmm.
that they're almost a different species. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, like, it is difficult to understand how they process information. And
Yes.
yes, if you put them in a, rural agrarian world where they have to, use an old mill wheel in order to grind out the wheat in order to make bread, yeah, they're going to panic and freak out and probably have a really hard time. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not the world we live in. And
So
that's the
who
thing, is
created
that,
it though? Who created the exponential curve? Was it the old it was the older generation that created the curve and the newer
well,
generation that took it to the next level?
so this is where we get a little philosophical. You
Okay.
have on one side people who say that humanity is constantly, even though we are terrible to each other, we're constantly on a curve of trying to improve ourselves.
Yes.
So in one way, it's our nature. Other people argue that it's our nature to destroy ourselves. I say it's really our nature to continue to try to improve. We see somebody who did something, we're like, I want to do that. And then they figure out the way to make the next step happen afterwards. Our nature is a little competitive because we understand that we can actually do more than what we're doing. So it's all of us together as a collective, as a species. We're always pushing ourselves to be better, either by our own goals in life or just by seeing somebody else do it and go, wow, that was amazing. And then you become inspired.
Mhm.
And that's something that we're having a really hard time with right now, is that there are generations of people who are deathly afraid of these changes that are coming, because for them, they hear things like globalization, no borders, or they fear that the machine is just going to take over everybody and they're not going to have any free will. And I get that. But that fear is based in the same place where you go to, where you say, well, if we lose electricity, we're all screwed. Those are two sides of the same coin on very diametric scales. And the fact of the matter is that, history has proven that we tend to not go that way. We tend to go up. Even the dark ages, where we said that we lost a lot of technology, we technically didn't.
Yeah.
We slowed down because people got very afraid, but progress didn't stop. It's never stopped.
Where do you see it all going? Like, are we going to be a multi-planetary species? Are we going to live on the moon next? Are we going to live inside the machines next? What do you think is like, where are we headed right now? Like
I mean, where
next
we're headed
20
right
years?
now is like, okay, so one thing, and this is something I want to make 100% clear. Where we're heading right now is figuring out how to unscrew our planet a little bit.
Mhm.
And we're doing a pretty good job of it. We've talked about this before, and we've talked about the fact that humanity has already figured out a way to stop the worst parts of, like global change from like
Mhm.
truly destroying the planet. Like, we're actually doing a pretty good job at that, and hopefully we continue to do a good job at it. But we're not there yet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure that out. The next thing we're going to do is we're probably going to figure out how to live on another planet. They just recently started talking about trying, and this is, I almost am afraid to say this out loud because it will not happen in our lifetime, but there are scientists and there are people who are now theorizing it's easier for us to go to Venus than it is to Mars because
So,
of the distances.
yeah. What
And
about
they're like,
atmospheres? Like,
remember me talking about how caustic the atmosphere of Venus was? They're
right?
like, that's why we don't land on the surface. We make floating cities. And I'm like, are you high? But then they start showing you the math, and you're like, so wait a minute, wait. And like the math that they're showing on how they would make these floating cities is insane. But the idea of us making sustainable societies on other celestial bodies in our solar system makes us a planetary species, and it makes it a lot harder to wipe us out. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're talking about Venus now as seriously as they're talking about Mars in some circles, and I'm just like, floating cities. Like, can
Yeah.
you imagine going to Bespin, like hanging out with Lando Calrissian, like on
No,
Venus?
I actually was thinking about the floating cities in like at the Bobiverse, right? Like
Right.
we kind of had the
Yeah.
Bobiverse with the floating
The
cities.
Bobiverse, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind ending up like Bob, to tell the truth.
Yeah, I,
Um,
I mean, well, except of course it technically wouldn't be you. It would be 2.0 you, but it would
now
be
that's
your
a question.
experiences.
That really is a question. Is it 2.0 you? And would you or would you not remember if I could just be if you're awake when the transfer happens?
Right.
Are you is it 2.0 you or is it the same you just in a new vessel?
Well, we talked about this in a book. And by the way, guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, there is a book called We Are Legion. It's the first book
Yeah.
in something called the Bobiverse, where a guy wakes up and he's an AI. And his whole job is to basically help humanity kind of go to the stars. And he figures the best way to do that is to start cloning himself. And he makes like multitudes of himself in order to get the job done.
Yeah. And
And
that is transhumanism at its extreme.
that is an extreme. That is Blade Runner. We have become the singularity kind of transhumanism, and we're nowhere
Right.
close to that.
Nowhere.
But we've also talked about old man's war, about the people who live their lives, and then as they get to old age, they get enlisted in the military. And there's a moment where they're in two bodies at the same time because they're going to go to war, and that consciousness actually leaves one body and goes into the other one.
Yep.
Those are two different types of technology. We don't know which one is real because we can't do it yet. So if we're talking about the Bobiverse, that is a copy. But I love how Bob explains it in the book, where he says, I'm the only person, I'm the first one to wake up, to still be here, and I'm the only one with Bob's original memories. Bob is not around anymore. Therefore, I am Bob.
Correct. And I
So in
can
that
get on board
aspect,
with that.
right. So because the organic you isn't around anymore, and if you wake up as an AI and you're the only one who's that, you are Bob, or you are Michael in this case.
Yeah.
And but that's why Bob also made the rule. And again, guys, we're getting way into geeky territory here.
Let's go back into like normal
Well, no, you gotta
territory.
let me finish the
Well,
sentence, which is why Bob said anybody who I make after that can't be named Bob. I'm the only Bob. So
that's
nobody else is Bob, and they all know the rule. But yeah, I'm sorry. So let's go back.
no, we could do a Bob show too. I want to talk
We
about what
easily
is
could.
it that right now we are being transhuman. So we've got our cell phones, we got our computers, we got our
Right.
cars. we've got aircraft. What's the I think people won't really see it until we get like Elon's Neuralink in our head and we start like turning on the lights by thinking about it and stuff. Not that we can't do that now, but where's
Yeah.
it coming right now?
Well, so this is where we start getting into the what are people calling post-humans. We don't really have a name for it yet, so they're just calling it post-humans. We even though people don't like to talk about it a lot, the CRISPR, which are you familiar with the CRISPR at all?
No, just for my refrigerator and salad.
Uh, so the CRISPR is basically the device and technology we use that we can actually look at our DNA code. We can actually take segments out and we can actually modify DNA strands. We can actually modify things on a genetic level.
Okay.
Um, Literally genetic engineering, and it's called CRISPR technology.
Okay.
Um, that we're literally at that point right now. That is right there. We're starting to weigh out. Okay, can we figure out a way to make humans better through augmenting their DNA, augmenting them through genetic engineering? That could make what are called post-humans. We also are really focused as a species onto enhancing the human cognitive ability. And that's something that is really key right now. We realize that our bodies are limited. Our bodies have a finite
Mhm.
shelf life because one of the things that we don't talk about is we as organic beings are technically dying in our own environment. Like, do you understand that's what aging is?
I've always heard it said, and I've always believed, like the instant you're born, you're starting to die, whether or not
Well,
you're.
that's actually not true. And the reason why is because your body continues to grow until you're almost 30. So you're continually creating new cells of a brand new type until you're almost 30. Now, granted, from the time of 20 to almost 30, it's almost all neurological.
Mhm.
But you are actually creating new things that have never been there before until about 30. Then after that, you're maintaining. And then after that, it starts to degrade.
You're dying. Okay.
So yeah, it's not a, oh, I'm bored, now I'm dying.
Well, no,
Philosophically,
you do get to grow, but you're just wearing things out as you go.
well, again, you're not. You're
Until you get
using
up to your 20s and then 30, 20 to 30,
your
goes
20s or
back.
30s, and then you're maintaining for quite some time. And then you start to have that cognitive decline. And the reason why that cognitive and physical decline is happening is because we are carbon-based life forms. We have iron in our blood, right? Like
Yep.
that's a big thing. You got to have iron in your blood. We look at things that are made out of iron all the time in this atmosphere. What happens to it, iron after a while?
Rust.
Exactly. That's literally what's happening to us. Our bodies are organically rusting. That's what aging is your body is slowly rusting away. And that's how I like to describe it to people. So scientists are trying to figure out a way to enhance our bodies so that way that rusting takes a lot longer to occur, and also to enhance our cognitive capabilities, because our brains, our little gray matter can only go so long, because this is the best computer that we know of in existence, and it can run at peak efficiency for 80 plus years without missing a beat. And then
Mhm.
after that, it starts to, if we're lucky, it starts to miss a few cycles. It like the software update just isn't keeping up anymore, and goes into a slow decline.
I keep telling you my superpower is that I forget movies. I get to watch them again. So mine's already
Right.
started. It started like when I was like 15. It's like, oh my gosh. So let's wrap this up for people. What do they have to look forward to? What is the big transhumanism thing that's happening? And we're going in our lifetime. This is it.
I think that we will see medical breakthroughs that will allow us to have longer, more satisfying lives. We will have the ability to have better communication and empathy with each other. And I believe what we're really going to have is we're going to have a scientific revolution as this generation of kids that are 20 and younger really get into their what I would consider their political prime. So we're talking their late 30s or early 40s,
Mhm.
because their values that they have been taught and lived with for their entire life will become the center. And when that happens, we're going to see some amazing technological breakthroughs come to play. And if we're still around for that, hopefully they'll say, hey, you want to live an extra 30, 40 years in really good health? And we're going to go, yes. And they're going to say, here you go. And we can
Yeah.
see even cooler stuff happen.
Yeah. The question is then, like, if we all say yes, do we have to move to the moon so we've got space and some, figure out new resources? We're gonna have to do a show on that too.
Oh man, resource management. Now we're going to basically get into like Legends of, or was it not Legends of Catan, the Catan game. We're going to have to like,
Yeah.
you took all my sheep. But yes, basically we'll have to figure that out. But there are answers.
There are. So,
Mhm.
hey, I just want to thank you again for being on. We're going to do this again. I love where
Yes.
we always go with these conversations. Um, For all you guys that want to keep following with Shaun and keep up with what he's doing, check it out
Mhm.
at facebook.com/popcycled.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave that on the screen as we bounce out of here. Fascinating conversation again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you know what?
What?
I do have a couple of questions for you.
Okay, I'm here.
No,
What's up?
this is just in a fun way. I want to do this.
Mhm.
I wasn't going to do it, but you know what we are going to do? We're going to do some this or that. I'm going to
Okay.
give you. I want to see how you cope with this or that this day. I'll give you
All right.
two questions. You can choose one or the other, not neither or both, which
Yeah,
is going to
you
be
did this to me
hard.
before. You know I don't like this, but okay, I'm
I
here.
know
I'm
you
here.
don't. That's why I was going to let it go, and now it's like no, no. I can't let it
Mhm.
go. We're going to have to do it. So first, this or that question. Let me
Okay.
see. How about cyborg or superhuman strength? Cyborg limbs or
Cyborg.
superhuman strength? Okay. Teleportation or time travel? I know. I know.
Okay, I need to ask for a little more information.
Nope. There's
Is
no more information. That's like you just there's the two subjects. You got one or the other.
Okay, well, the only reason why I ask is that then I'm going to go with teleportation because I can control where I end up. If you use time travel and it's time travel that keeps you in the exact spot that you're in, but then you travel back in time, if I go back 400 years, that means I'm going to be in the vacuum of space
I think
because our planet won't be in the same place it was 400 years ago. So that would be a stupid power without the ability for my body to move in conjunction with the Earth, which is why I needed more information. So
I love this.
because I wasn't able to get that, teleportation.
How about invisibility, cloak, or shape shifting abilities?
Oh, invisibility cloak or shape shifting.
Yeah.
I
That's
think I'd like to do shape shifting. Looking like somebody else could be kind of cool.
yeah, that would like be kind of cool. We're getting to that with at least online we can get to that now, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
invisibility is cool, but like to actually, I mean, if you can look like somebody else, that practically makes you invisible, anyways, right?
Yeah. How
So
about
yeah,
living forever or being able to heal instantly?
heal instantly with the caveat that I don't have to live forever. I do not want to live forever.
I think heal instantly too, because I would want to live longer. And they just decide one day you want to chop your head off like a Highlander.
Well, or just say, you know what? Like, I like how they explain Guinan in Star Trek Next Generation, how they explain her getting older. She's like, well, I can choose to get older if I want to. You know,
Mm,
like she doesn't have to live forever if she wants to. She can change how she looks. And I'm like, if I had that caveat, yeah, healing definitely. But if I had that Wolverine power where I'm just never going to get older,
yeah,
screw that. Living
yeah.
forever, Highlander style, that movie affected me profoundly. I would never want to outlive my loved ones.
By the way, we do not want to give away any spoilers here, but we've all seen Data in the various versions of Star Trek.
Mhm.
Does it ever bother you that Data gets older, and even though he's an android?
No, I think that they have tried really hard to explain why he's older and aging. And
Yeah.
the most recent explanation, again, not spoilering, I think was actually a really good explanation.
Okay.
Because they've now given that character a shelf life, and I like that.
Okay. How about well, we'll go into that another one. We'll do Star Wars,
Mhm.
Star Trek one day. Superhuman memory or the ability to download information directly into your brain.
I mean, technically, you're talking about the same thing. So
It's
yes.
kind of, but one's faster than
So
the
if
other.
I had superhuman memory, then I
Yeah, I'd
guess
go with memory. Yeah.
yeah,
What's cooler, jetpacks or flying cars?
jetpacks.
Would you? You know what? I imagine jetpacks evolving into Iron Man one day. That would be
Yes,
super cool.
yes. Yeah, flying cars are a neat idea, but like I just like the idea of a jetpack. Like I just walk outside. Just I love that idea. I love that
Yeah. How about virtual reality vacations or space tourism?
space tourism.
Really, God, I would go for the virtual reality vacations because I love
I've
it.
seen Total Recall too many times. No
I've
way.
seen Total Recall, but I've also seen the holodeck. And man, I could live in a holodeck.
Yeah, but you see, when you said virtual reality like vacation, my brain went to Total Recall, not the holodeck. And I'm like,
That,
I do not want to wind up lobotomized. Now,
yeah.
if it was a holodeck virtual holiday, okay, maybe, but I'd rather go to space, even though I'm deathly afraid of space. And that's the funny part, right? Like, I'm obsessed with this stuff,
Uh-huh.
but my wife continues to remind me if somebody tomorrow said, for free, we will send you to space and you will be the safest you'll ever be, and you get to be in space,
No.
I would probably say yes, but I would basically scream like a young child all the way up, all the way in space, all the way back down, and then I would need intensive therapy for like a decade afterwards.
Maybe you could like take the space elevator if we ever get that working, and then you'll be little safer.
Don't talk. Oh man, don't even talk about space elevators because that's a whole nother conversation. I would rather be on a rocket ship that could explode versus a space elevator because those things would take forever to get to space.
Am I?
and that would be too long.
I
Too
saw
long.
Planet Krypton, and it was actually pretty fast there, but we'll get into that too.
Okay, I'm talking about the actual science behind the space
Oh,
elevator,
I
not
know.
Krypton.
No, I know. Food replicator or personal robot chef?
Food replicator.
I would go food replicator too. I love that idea. Ice cream, thank you.
Yes.
Healthy ice cream, thank you even more. Okay. Power to read minds or to control emotions?
I don't like either one of those, actually. Okay, so the power to read minds or to control. Are you talking about my own emotions or talking about others'
I'm
emotions?
just saying things. However you interpret it.
I guess power to read minds, but both of those are too invasive. I'm not that person.
Okay. How about last one? Universal translator in your ear
Uh-huh.
or a brain implant that allows you to speak every language?
I mean, essentially the same thing. So again, in my ear or in my brain is basically what you're asking me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go in my ear. If I don't have to go through surgery to get the same power, I'm good.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
go with that.
Yeah.
Sounds fun
I
to
don't
me.
want my brain cracked open just for for fun. But if somebody was in there and they're like, hey, we're going to save your life by putting this thing in to save your brain, you
Yeah.
want to be able to understand all the languages? Sure. Do that. I mean, but
Yeah.
otherwise, just give me the earpiece.
Stormlight theories. You just suck in Stormlight and then you can actually understand languages.
Yeah. I mean, there you go.
If you've read that, that's out there too. All right, Shaun, thank you again. I want to just bounce out of here, and
You're
we
very
will see
welcome.
you in the future for sure. Okay.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Bye.